Trust in Jesus will bring you closer to God. Have you ever felt distant from God, wondering if He's truly listening? You pray, but it feels like your words disappear into silence. You search for signs, but nothing seems to change. The distance you feel isn't because God moved. It's because trust needs to be restored. Trust in Jesus is the key that bridges the gap between where you are and the presence of God that your soul longs for. Right now, your heart might be heavy with doubts, fears, or regrets. But what if the answer to closing that distance is simpler than you think? Imagine the peace of knowing that no matter what you face, you are never alone. Imagine the confidence that comes when you trust that Jesus is guiding every step of your journey. This isn't just an idea, it's a reality that can change your life starting today. You might be wondering how trusting in Jesus can truly bring you closer to God. Maybe you've tried before, but life's hardships have left you questioning if God really cares. Or perhaps you've been holding on to control, afraid that surrendering to Jesus means losing yourself. The truth is, trusting in Jesus doesn't mean giving up your identity. It means discovering the fullness of who you were created to be. Think about a time when you trusted someone completely. There was freedom in that trust, wasn't there? You didn't have to second-guess their intentions or worry about being let down. Now, imagine that same freedom multiplied infinitely, because Jesus never fails, never abandons, and never stops loving you. This is the kind of trust that transforms everything. But let's be honest, trusting isn't always easy. Maybe you've been hurt by people who claim to represent God. Maybe unanswered prayers have made you doubt if God is even listening. These experiences can create walls around your heart, making it hard to open up again. But what if those walls are the very thing keeping you from experiencing the love and peace that Jesus is offering you right now? Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast canyon, longing to reach the other side, where God's presence is waiting. The canyon feels impossible to cross, and every past disappointment, fear, and doubt stands between you and God. But then Jesus steps forward and offers His hand. Trusting Him is like stepping onto a bridge that spans the canyon, strong, steady, and sure. The distance that once seemed impossible disappears as you take each step, guided by His love. This isn't about blind faith or pretending that life is perfect. It's about choosing to believe that Jesus is who He says He is, the way, the truth, and the life. When you trust Him, you're not ignoring life's challenges. You're inviting His power and presence into every situation. Suddenly, fear loses its grip because you know you're not alone. Doubt fades because you see His faithfulness in every step. Imagine waking up each morning with a sense of peace that no circumstance can shake. Imagine facing challenges with the confidence that God is working everything for your good. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the reality of a life built on trust in Jesus. And the best part, this kind of trust is available to you right now, no matter where you've been or what you've done. In this video, you'll discover how trusting in Jesus can bring you closer to God in ways you never thought possible. You'll learn why trust is essential, what happens when it's missing, and how to break through the barriers that hold you back. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand the importance of trust. You'll know how to live it every day, transforming your relationship with God and experiencing His love, peace, and purpose like never before. Why trust is essential to your relationship with God. Trust is the foundation of every relationship, and your relationship with God is no different. Without trust, even the closest bond can feel distant and fragile. But when trust is present, it creates a connection that is strong, enduring, and unbreakable. Trust is not just a feeling, it is a choice that shapes the way you live, think, and relate to God. Imagine standing on the edge of a bridge suspended over a deep canyon. Beneath you is a drop that feels both terrifying and impossible to cross. The only way to reach the other side is to step onto the bridge, trusting that it will hold your weight. In that moment, your choice to trust determines whether you stay stuck where you are or move forward into something greater. Trust in Jesus works the same way. It is the bridge that connects your heart to God's presence, allowing you to move beyond fear, doubt, and uncertainty into a life filled with peace, purpose, and confidence. But why is trust so essential? Because without trust, your relationship with God remains distant. You might believe in His existence, read His word, and even pray, but without trust, these actions can feel hollow. Trust is what turns belief into relationship. It is the difference between knowing about God and knowing Him personally. When you trust Jesus, you open your heart to experience God's love, guidance, and presence in every aspect of your life. Think about the relationships in your life. Trust is what allows you to be vulnerable, to share your hopes and fears without fear of judgment. It creates a space where you can be fully known and fully loved. The same is true in your relationship with God. When you trust Him, you no longer feel the need to hide your mistakes or pretend to have it all together. You can come to Him with every weakness, knowing that His love is constant and His grace is sufficient. This kind of trust brings freedom, the freedom to be yourself, to let go of fear, and to live with the assurance that God is always with you. Trust also shapes the way you respond to life's challenges. When circumstances are uncertain or painful, trust in Jesus allows you to stand firm, knowing that God is in control. Without trust, difficulties can lead to fear, anxiety, and hopelessness. But when you trust Jesus, even the darkest moments are filled with the light of His presence. You may not always understand why certain things happen, but trust reminds you that God's plan is greater than your perspective. It gives you the strength to keep moving forward, confident that He is working all things together for your good. One of the greatest barriers to trust is the fear of being let down. Maybe you've trusted people in the past, only to be hurt or disappointed. These experiences can make it difficult to trust anyone, including God. But here's the truth. God is not like people. He never breaks His promises, never fails to show up, and never turns His back on you. His love is constant, His faithfulness is unchanging, and His word is true. Trusting Jesus means believing that His character is trustworthy, even when life doesn't make sense. Trust is not something that happens overnight. It is built through daily choices and experiences. Each time you choose to trust Jesus, your relationship with God grows stronger. It's like strengthening a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Every prayer you pray, every step of faith you take, and every moment you surrender to His will deepens your trust, drawing you closer to God. When you trust Jesus, your relationship with God becomes more than just a belief. It becomes a living, breathing connection that shapes every aspect of your life. You begin to see His hand at work in both the big moments and the small details. Your heart becomes more sensitive to His voice, guiding you with wisdom and peace. And as your trust grows, so does your confidence in His love, His plan, and His ability to lead you through anything life may bring. Trust is the foundation that transforms your relationship with God from distant to intimate, from uncertain to unshakable. It is the key that unlocks the fullness of His presence, allowing you to experience the depth of His love and the power of His peace. Without trust, your relationship with God remains limited by fear and doubt. But when you choose to trust Jesus, you step into a life of freedom, confidence, and purpose. A life where God's presence is not just something you believe in, but something you experience every single day. The role of Jesus as the bridge to God. There is a gap between humanity and God, a separation caused by sin, fear, and doubt. This gap is not one that can be crossed through good deeds or religious rituals. No amount of effort or striving can bridge the distance between a broken world and a holy God. But this is where the role of Jesus becomes essential. Jesus is not just a teacher, prophet, or moral example. He is the bridge that connects you to God, making a relationship with Him possible. In the book of John, chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus declares, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." These words are not a suggestion. They are a statement of absolute truth. Jesus is the only path that leads to God. His life, death, and resurrection are what make it possible for you to approach God with confidence, knowing that your sins have been forgiven and your relationship with Him has been restored. Without Jesus, the gap remains uncrossable. With Jesus, the distance disappears, and you are welcomed into the presence of God as His beloved child. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast canyon. On one side stands humanity, weighed down by sin, fear, and shame. On the other side stands God, full of love, holiness, and perfect peace. The canyon is deep, wide, and impossible to cross by human effort alone. No amount of good works, religious rituals, or moral striving can bridge the gap. But then, Jesus steps forward. His outstretched arms become the bridge that spans the canyon, creating a path where there was none. By trusting in Him, you can step onto that bridge, leaving behind the weight of sin and fear, and moving into the presence of God. This is not just a metaphor. It is the reality of what Jesus has done for you. Through His sacrifice on the cross, He took the punishment that your sins deserved, paying the price that you could never pay. His death tore down the barrier that separated you from God, and His resurrection opened the way for you to experience eternal life. This is why trusting in Jesus is essential, because without Him, there is no way to reach God. But when you place your trust in Him, you are no longer separated. You are connected, accepted, and loved. Trusting Jesus as the bridge to God means more than just believing in His existence. It means relying on Him as the foundation of your life. It means acknowledging that you cannot save yourself and surrendering to His grace. It means recognizing that His sacrifice was not just for the world, it was for you personally. Every sin you've committed, every mistake you've made, every doubt and fear you've carried, Jesus took it all upon Himself so that nothing could stand between you and God. When you trust in Him, you step onto the bridge that leads to forgiveness, freedom, and a relationship with God that will never be broken. But trusting Jesus as the bridge to God is not just about what happens after you die. It transforms the way you live every day. When you know that Jesus has made a way for you to be close to God, you no longer have to live in fear or guilt. You can approach God with confidence, knowing that you are fully known and fully loved. You can pray with boldness, knowing that your words are heard. You can face challenges with peace, knowing that God is with you. And you can live with purpose, knowing that your life has meaning and direction because you are connected to the One who created you. The role of Jesus as the bridge to God also changes the way you see yourself. Without Jesus, it is easy to believe that you are defined by your past mistakes or your present struggles. But when you trust in Him, you realize that your identity is no longer based on what you have done. It is based on what He has done for you. You are not defined by your failures. You are defined by His grace. You are not held back by your weaknesses. You are empowered by His strength. You are not separated from God. You are His beloved child, adopted into His family, and given a future filled with hope. This connection with God is not something you have to earn or strive to maintain. It is a gift that Jesus offers freely to anyone who will trust in Him. The moment you place your trust in Jesus, the gap between you and God is closed forever. You are no longer a stranger. You are a son or daughter of the King. You are no longer bound by fear. You are free to live with confidence and joy. You are no longer searching for meaning. You have found it in the one who created you, loves you, and has a purpose for your life. But trust requires action. Just as standing at the edge of a bridge will not get you to the other side, simply knowing about Jesus will not bring you closer to God. You must take the step of faith, choosing to trust in what Jesus has done, even when you cannot see the whole path ahead. This step of faith may feel uncertain at first, but as you walk forward, you will discover that the bridge beneath your feet is firm and unshakable. Every step you take brings you closer to the heart of God, where His love, peace, and presence are waiting to transform your life. The role of Jesus as the bridge to God is not just a theological concept, it is a personal invitation. Right now, Jesus is standing before you with outstretched arms, offering to lead you across the gap that has kept you from experiencing the fullness of God's love. The question is not whether the bridge is there, the question is whether you will trust Him enough to step onto it. Will you leave behind the fear, doubt, and sin that have held you back? Will you take the step of faith that will bring you into a relationship with God that is more real, more personal, and more powerful than you have ever known? What happens when we don't trust Jesus? When you choose not to trust Jesus, a distance begins to form between you and God. This distance is not because God has moved away from you, it is because fear, doubt, and self-reliance have built walls around your heart. Trust is the key that opens the door to God's presence, but without it, those doors remain closed, leaving you feeling isolated, uncertain, and disconnected from the love and peace that only He can provide. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest, knowing that there is light, safety, and peace waiting on the other side. But instead of trusting the guide who knows the way, you try to navigate the path alone. Each step is uncertain, every sound fills you with fear, and the longer you walk without guidance, the more lost you become. This is what happens when you choose not to trust Jesus. You rely on your own strength and understanding, but no matter how hard you try, you cannot find your way through the darkness. Fear takes root. Anxiety grows, and the distance between you and God feels greater with each passing day. Doubt becomes a constant companion, whispering that God is distant, that He doesn't care, or that you are unworthy of His love. These lies take hold in your mind, shaping the way you see yourself and the world around you. Instead of living with confidence and purpose, you begin to question every decision, unsure if you are on the right path. Prayer feels empty, as if your words disappear into the void. Reading the Bible feels like reading a book of rules rather than a message of hope. Worship feels like going through the motions, disconnected from the presence of God that your soul longs to experience. Without trust, fear takes control. You become afraid of what the future holds, afraid of failure, and afraid that God will not come through when you need Him most. This fear leads to a need for control. You try to plan every detail, fix every problem, and protect yourself from anything that might go wrong. But the more you try to control, the more anxious you become, because deep down, you know that life is unpredictable and beyond your ability to manage. This cycle of fear and control creates stress, anxiety, and exhaustion, leaving you feeling overwhelmed and alone. When trust is absent, your relationship with God becomes transactional. You begin to see God as someone you turn to only when you need something, rather than someone you walk with every day. Your prayers become a list of requests, and when those requests are not answered in the way or the timing you expect, disappointment and frustration begin to build. You may start to question whether God is really listening or if He even cares. These unanswered questions create a sense of distance, making it harder to believe that God is truly present and active in your life. Self-reliance becomes your default mode of living. Instead of seeking God's wisdom and guidance, you rely on your own understanding. You make decisions based on what seems logical or practical rather than seeking God's will. This self-reliance might bring temporary success, but it also leads to stress and burnout because carrying the weight of life on your own shoulders is a burden you were never meant to bear. The longer you live without trusting Jesus, the more isolated you feel. Not because God has abandoned you, but because you have closed your heart to His presence. Without trust, sin begins to take hold. When you doubt that God's way is best, it becomes easier to compromise your values and make choices that lead you away from Him. You may seek comfort in things that offer temporary relief, but leave you feeling empty and guilty. Shame begins to build, creating even more distance between you and God. The enemy uses this shame to convince you that you are unworthy of God's love, trapping you in a cycle of guilt and regret that makes it even harder to trust that God's grace is enough. But the consequences of not trusting Jesus are not limited to your spiritual life. They affect every area of your life. Relationships become strained because fear and control make it difficult to love and trust others. Anxiety and stress take a toll on your physical and emotional health. Decisions become harder because you are driven by fear of failure rather than confidence in God's guidance. And even when you achieve success, it feels hollow because you know that something is missing. The peace and joy that come from walking in step with God. Yet despite all of this, God never stops pursuing you. Even when you don't trust Him, His love remains constant. Like a shepherd searching for a lost sheep, He continues to call your name, inviting you to return to Him. The distance you feel is not permanent. It can be bridged the moment you choose to trust Jesus. No matter how far you've wandered, no matter how many times you've doubted, God's arms are always open, ready to welcome you back into His presence. But the choice is yours. Trust is not something that God will force upon you. It is a decision you must make. Will you continue to carry the weight of life on your own, struggling to find your way through the darkness? Or will you take His hand, allowing Him to lead you into the light of His love and peace? The moment you choose to trust Jesus, the walls of fear, doubt, and control begin to crumble. The distance that once seemed impossible to cross disappears, and you experience the freedom, confidence, and joy that come from knowing that you are never alone. Breaking through the barriers to trust. Trusting Jesus is not always easy. For many, the desire to trust is there, but invisible barriers stand in the way. Barriers built from past experiences, unanswered prayers, fear of surrender, and misconceptions about who God is. These barriers create a wall between you and the life of freedom, peace, and intimacy with God that trust makes possible. But no matter how strong these walls may seem, they can be broken. The key lies in identifying the barriers, understanding where they come from, and taking intentional steps to tear them down. One of the most common barriers to trusting Jesus is the fear of being let down. Maybe you've trusted people in the past, only to be hurt, betrayed, or abandoned. These experiences leave scars, making it difficult to believe that anyone, including God, can truly be trusted. The fear of disappointment whispers that it's safer to rely on yourself than to risk being let down again. But this fear is a lie that keeps you trapped in isolation. God is not like the people who have hurt you. His love is perfect, His promises are unbreakable, and His faithfulness never fails. Breaking through this barrier begins with recognizing that trusting Jesus is not about trusting that life will always go your way. It's about trusting that God is always working for your good, even when you cannot see it. Another barrier is the pain of unanswered prayers. Maybe you've prayed for healing, for provision, or for a situation to change, but the answer never came, or at least not in the way you expected. Each unanswered prayer feels like a stone added to the wall between you and God. Over time, it becomes harder to believe that He is listening or that He cares. But here's the truth. God always hears your prayers, and He always responds, sometimes with a yes, sometimes with a no, and sometimes with wait. The challenge is trusting that His perspective is greater than yours. What feels like silence is often God's way of protecting you, preparing you, or leading you to something better. Breaking through this barrier requires a shift in perspective, from demanding specific outcomes to trusting that God's plan is greater than your understanding. For many, the biggest barrier to trust is the fear of surrender. Trusting Jesus means letting go of control and allowing Him to lead your life. But surrender can feel like losing control, and that thought is terrifying. What if God's plan is different from yours? What if trusting Him means stepping into the unknown? This fear is rooted in the belief that you know what's best for your life. But true freedom comes when you realize that God's wisdom is greater than yours. Surrender is not about losing control. It's about placing your life in the hands of the one who created you, knows you, and loves you more than you can imagine. When you surrender control, you discover that God's plans are not meant to limit you. They are meant to lead you into a life of purpose, joy, and peace. Misconceptions about who God is also create barriers to trust. Maybe you see God as distant, harsh, or judgmental. Perhaps you believe that He only loves you when you are perfect, or that He is waiting to punish you for your mistakes. These false beliefs create fear and shame, making it impossible to approach God with confidence. But the truth is that God's love is unconditional. His grace is not based on your performance. It is a gift that He freely offers. Breaking through this barrier begins with replacing lies with truth. When you learn who God truly is, a loving Father who is patient, compassionate, and full of grace, trust becomes a natural response. Pride can also be a barrier to trust. The desire to be independent, to prove that you can handle life on your own, creates a mindset that resists relying on anyone, even God. Pride whispers that trusting Jesus is a sign of weakness, that you should be able to figure things out on your own. But this mindset leads to stress, anxiety, and burnout because you were never meant to carry the weight of life alone. True strength comes from humility, the willingness to admit that you need God's help, and the courage to rely on His strength instead of your own. Breaking through these barriers requires action. The first step is honesty, being willing to acknowledge the fears, doubts, and misconceptions that are holding you back. Don't try to hide them or pretend they don't exist. Bring them into the light, knowing that God is not intimidated by your doubts or disappointed by your fears. He welcomes your honesty and meets you with grace. Next, replace fear with faith. Fear focuses on what might go wrong, while faith focuses on who God is. When fear says, "What if God doesn't come through?" faith responds, "Even if I don't see the outcome I want, I know that God is still good." One way to strengthen your faith is by remembering God's faithfulness in the past. Think about the times when He has provided, protected, and guided you, even when you didn't see it in the moment. Let those memories remind you that the same God who was faithful then will be faithful now. Another key to breaking through the barriers to trust is to take small steps of faith. Trust is built through experience. The more you step out in faith and see God's faithfulness, the stronger your trust becomes. Start with small steps, trusting God with a decision, a relationship, or a situation that feels uncertain. Each time you choose to trust, you break down another brick in the wall that separates you from God. Over time, those small steps lead to a life of confidence and peace, where trusting Jesus is no longer a struggle. It becomes your natural response. Community is also essential. Surround yourself with people who encourage your faith, share their testimonies of God's faithfulness, and remind you of His promises. Their stories will inspire you to believe that if God came through for them, He will come through for you as well. Prayer and reading the Bible are powerful tools for breaking through barriers. Prayer allows you to bring your fears and doubts directly to God, while the Bible reminds you of His character, His promises, and His unchanging love. Ultimately, breaking through the barriers to trust is about choosing to believe that God is who He says He is. It's about refusing to let fear, doubt, or past experiences define your relationship with Him. It's about taking the risk of trusting even when you cannot see the outcome, because you know that the one you are trusting is faithful. When these barriers fall, the distance between you and God disappears. You experience His presence in a way that transforms every part of your life. And you discover that trusting Jesus is not a burden. It is the key to living with peace, freedom, and joy. Trusting Jesus in everyday life. Trusting Jesus is not meant to be reserved for life's biggest decisions or moments of crisis. True trust is lived out in the everyday moments, the small choices, daily routines, and seemingly insignificant interactions that shape the course of your life. It's easy to say you trust Jesus when everything is going well, but the real test of trust comes in the ordinary, mundane moments when doubt and fear quietly creep in. Learning to trust Jesus in the day-to-day is what transforms your relationship with God from distant and occasional to close, constant, and unshakable. Imagine waking up each morning with the confidence that you are not facing the day alone. Before your feet hit the floor, you know that Jesus is already ahead of you, preparing the way and walking beside you. This awareness changes the way you approach everything, from your relationships and responsibilities to your worries and decisions. Instead of carrying the weight of life on your shoulders, you begin to lean on the strength and wisdom of the one who holds all things together. Trusting Jesus in everyday life begins with acknowledging that you need Him in every moment, not just when problems arise. It means inviting Him into your thoughts, conversations, and decisions, allowing His presence to guide you even in the smallest details. This kind of trust is built through daily habits that keep your heart and mind focused on God. Prayer becomes more than a ritual. It becomes an ongoing conversation where you share your joys, concerns, and questions with the confidence that He is listening. Reading the Bible becomes more than a task. It becomes a source of wisdom and encouragement that shapes your perspective and strengthens your faith. But trusting Jesus in everyday life is not just about what you do, it's about how you think. Fear and worry often take root in your thoughts long before they show up in your actions. Trust means choosing to believe that God is in control, even when your mind is flooded with what-if scenarios. When anxiety whispers, "What if things go wrong?" Trust responds, "Even if they do, God will be with me." When doubt questions, "What if I'm not enough?" Trust declares, "God's strength is made perfect in my weakness." This shift in thinking doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of consistently reminding yourself of God's promises and choosing to believe that His word is true. Trust also affects the way you respond to challenges. Life is full of unexpected twists, financial struggles, health issues, relationship conflicts, and career setbacks. In these moments, it's natural to feel afraid or uncertain. But trusting Jesus means believing that He is working all things together for your good, even when you cannot see how. It means choosing faith over fear, hope over despair, and surrender over control. This doesn't mean ignoring your problems or pretending they don't exist. It means facing them with the confidence that God is bigger than any obstacle you face. One of the most practical ways to trust Jesus in everyday life is by surrendering your plans and desires to His will. It's easy to get caught up in striving for success, recognition, or security, thinking that your happiness depends on achieving certain goals. But true peace comes from knowing that God's plans are greater than your own. Trust means being willing to let go of your agenda and embrace His timing, even when it doesn't match your expectations. It means believing that when doors close, it's because God is leading you to something better. When opportunities are delayed, it's because He is preparing you for what's ahead. Trusting Jesus also transforms the way you interact with others. In a world that values independence and self-reliance, choosing to trust God with your relationships requires humility and faith. It means releasing the need to control or manipulate outcomes, and instead trusting that God is working in the hearts of those around you. Whether it's trusting Him to heal a broken relationship, guide you to the right partner, or help you raise your children, knowing that He is in control brings a sense of peace that nothing else can provide. This kind of trust is not built in a single moment. It is developed through daily choices to rely on God, even when it feels easier to rely on yourself. It grows stronger each time you step out in faith, choosing to obey God's leading, even when it doesn't make sense. It deepens when you see God's faithfulness in the small moments, when He provides just what you need at just the right time, when He gives you peace in the middle of chaos, or when He answers a prayer in a way you never expected. Each of these experiences becomes a reminder that God is trustworthy, and each reminder strengthens your confidence that He will continue to guide and provide. Trusting Jesus in everyday life also means trusting His timing. In a world that values instant results, waiting can feel like wasted time, but God's timing is perfect, even when it feels slow. Trust means believing that His delays are not denials, they are opportunities for growth and preparation. When you learn to trust His timing, you stop striving to force things to happen and start resting in the assurance that He is working behind the scenes. This kind of trust allows you to live with a sense of peace and patience, knowing that God's plans are worth waiting for. Finally, trusting Jesus in everyday life is about choosing to walk by faith, not by sight. Life is full of uncertainties, and it's easy to become consumed by what you can see and understand. But trust means believing that God is working in ways you cannot see, orchestrating every detail of your life according to His perfect plan. It means stepping into the unknown with confidence, knowing that even when the path is unclear, God is leading you to something greater. This kind of faith allows you to live with a sense of freedom and joy, unburdened by fear and anxiety, because you know that your future is secure in God's hands. Trust is not a one-time decision, it is a daily choice. Each morning, you have the opportunity to choose trust over fear, faith over doubt, and surrender over control. Each small step of trust strengthens your relationship with God, drawing you closer to His heart and allowing you to experience His presence in every moment of your life. The more you trust Jesus in the everyday moments, the more natural it becomes to trust Him with the big decisions and challenges. Over time, trust becomes more than just a concept. It becomes the foundation of your life, allowing you to walk through every season with confidence, peace, and unwavering faith. The power of surrender to God. Surrender is the heart of trusting Jesus. It is the act of releasing control and placing your life in the hands of the one who knows you, loves you, and has a perfect plan for your future. Yet, surrender is one of the hardest things to do. The desire to control outcomes, protect yourself from disappointment, and ensure that life unfolds the way you want can make it difficult to fully trust God. But the truth is, holding on to control does not bring peace. It brings anxiety, stress, and exhaustion. True freedom is found when you let go of the need to control and allow God to lead your life. Picture yourself holding tightly to a rope, your hands clenched so tightly that your muscles ache. You hold on because you fear what might happen if you let go. But what if the very thing you're holding on to is what's keeping you from experiencing the peace and freedom that God has for you? Letting go doesn't mean falling into the unknown. It means falling into the arms of a God who is always there to catch you. His hands are strong enough to carry you through any storm, and his heart is full of love and compassion for every fear and doubt you carry. Surrender begins with the realization that you are not in control, and that's a good thing. The weight of trying to control every aspect of your life is a burden you were never meant to carry. When you trust Jesus, you exchange that burden for his peace. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." This is not just a comforting promise, it is an invitation to live differently. Instead of striving, struggling, and worrying, you can rest in the knowledge that God is in control, and his plans are always for your good. But surrender is not passive. It is an active choice to trust God, even when you cannot see what he is doing. It means releasing your grip on the things you cannot control, and choosing to believe that God's wisdom is greater than your own. This requires faith, especially when life doesn't go the way you expected. When prayers seem unanswered, when dreams are delayed, and when challenges arise, surrender means choosing to say, "God, I don't understand, but I trust you." This kind of faith is not blind. It is built on the foundation of God's character. He is faithful, loving, and sovereign, and he is working all things together for your good, even when you cannot see it. One of the greatest barriers to surrender is fear. The fear of what might happen if you let go of control. What if God's plan is different from yours? What if trusting him means stepping into the unknown? What if you get hurt or disappointed? These fears are real, but they are based on the lie that God's plans are not good. The truth is that God's love is perfect, and his plans are for your welfare, not to harm you. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope." When you surrender to God, you are not giving up control. You are placing your life in the hands of the one who knows you better than you know yourself, and who is committed to leading you into the fullness of his purpose for your life. Surrender also requires humility, the willingness to admit that you do not have all the answers and that your understanding is limited. Pride tells you that you need to figure things out on your own, but humility recognizes that true wisdom comes from trusting God. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 to 6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." This verse is not a suggestion, it is a promise. When you choose to trust God, instead of relying on your own wisdom, he will guide you, protect you, and lead you into the life he has prepared for you. Letting go and letting God means releasing your expectations and embracing his timing. It means trusting that even when things don't happen as quickly as you would like, God is still at work. Waiting is never easy, but it is often in the waiting that God does his greatest work in your heart. He uses seasons of waiting to strengthen your faith, refine your character, and prepare you for the blessings he has in store. When you surrender your timeline to God, you can live with peace and patience, knowing that his timing is perfect. Surrender also transforms the way you face challenges. Instead of reacting with fear, stress, or frustration, you learn to respond with faith and confidence. You no longer have to carry the weight of trying to fix every problem or control every outcome. Instead, you can bring your concerns to God, knowing that he is able to do immeasurably more than you can ask or imagine. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7 encourages us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This peace is not dependent on your circumstances. It is the result of trusting that God is in control, no matter what happens. But surrender is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. Each morning, you have the opportunity to choose whether you will hold on to control or release it to God. Each time you choose to trust Him, your faith grows stronger. Over time, surrender becomes a way of life, a posture of the heart that allows you to live with freedom, peace, and joy. You begin to see God's hand in every situation, guiding you, providing for you, and working all things together for your good. Ultimately, the power of surrender lies in the freedom it brings. When you let go of the need to control and trust God with your life, you are no longer weighed down by fear, worry, or stress. You are free to live with confidence and purpose, knowing that the God who created the universe is holding your life in His hands. You are free to take risks, knowing that even if you stumble, God will catch you. You are free to love others without fear of rejection, because your worth is found in God's love. And you are free to pursue your dreams, knowing that God is guiding your steps and opening doors that no one can close. Surrender is not about losing control. It is about gaining a life of peace, freedom, and purpose. It is about discovering that the life God has for you is greater than anything you could create on your own. And it all begins with a choice to let go and let God. How trust transforms your relationship with God. Trust is the foundation that turns belief into relationship. Without trust, your connection with God remains distant, built on rituals and rules rather than love and intimacy. But when you choose to trust Jesus, your relationship with God becomes personal, vibrant, and life-changing. Trust is not just about believing that God exists. It is about believing that He is who He says He is, faithful, loving, and actively involved in your life. This kind of trust transforms the way you see yourself, the way you navigate challenges, and the way you experience God's presence in your everyday life. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean, with waves stretching as far as the eye can see. At first, the water feels unfamiliar and uncertain. But as you step in, you discover that the water holds you up, supporting you as you move forward. The deeper you go, the more you realize that the ocean's strength is greater than your fear. Trusting God is like stepping into that ocean. Each step of faith brings you closer to the heart of God, where His love and power surround you, carrying you through every season of life. When you trust Jesus, your relationship with God moves from distant to intimate. No longer is God a far-off figure, watching from a distance. Instead, He becomes your constant companion, the one who walks beside you through every joy and sorrow. Trust opens the door to a relationship where you can be fully known and fully loved. You no longer have to hide your fears, doubts, or mistakes, because you know that God's love is not based on your performance. His grace covers every failure, and His mercy is new every morning. This understanding brings freedom, the freedom to be yourself, to approach God with confidence, and to live without the fear of condemnation. Trust also transforms the way you hear God's voice. When doubt and fear fill your heart, it becomes difficult to recognize God's guidance. But when you trust Him, your heart becomes more sensitive to His leading. You begin to recognize His voice in the stillness of your spirit, in the wisdom of His word, and in the circumstances of your life. This awareness brings a sense of peace and direction. Even when the path ahead is unclear, you no longer have to rely on your own understanding, because you know that God is guiding your steps. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." This promise becomes a reality when you choose to trust, allowing God to lead you into the life He has prepared for you. As trust grows, so does your faith. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to believe that God is greater than your fear. When you trust Jesus, fear loses its power because you know that you are never alone. Even in the darkest moments, you can hold on to the promise that God is with you, working all things together for your good. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 declares, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." This assurance transforms the way you face challenges, giving you the strength to keep moving forward even when the road is difficult. Trust also transforms the way you pray. Instead of approaching God with fear or hesitation, you come to him with confidence, knowing that he hears your prayers and cares about every detail of your life. Prayer becomes a conversation rather than a transaction, a time to share your heart with the one who knows you better than you know yourself. And as you pray, you begin to see God's hand at work, answering prayers in ways you never expected. Each answered prayer becomes a reminder of his faithfulness, strengthening your trust and deepening your relationship with him. But trusting God is not just about what he does, it's about who he is. Even when prayers seem unanswered and life doesn't go as planned, trust allows you to hold on to the truth that God is still good. His character does not change based on your circumstances. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. This unchanging nature becomes the anchor for your soul, holding you steady when everything else feels uncertain. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 8 declares, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever." This truth gives you the confidence to trust that God's love, faithfulness, and power are constant, no matter what life may bring. Trust also transforms your identity. When you see yourself through God's eyes, you begin to understand your true worth and purpose. You are no longer defined by your past mistakes or the opinions of others. You are defined by God's love. You are his child, created with purpose and destined for greatness. This understanding gives you the confidence to step into the life God has called you to live, knowing that you are fully equipped and empowered by his Spirit. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 10 reminds us, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." When you trust this truth, you no longer live with fear or insecurity. You live with boldness and purpose, knowing that your life has eternal significance. Trust also transforms your relationships with others. When you experience the depth of God's love and faithfulness, it changes the way you love and trust those around you. You no longer need to seek validation from people because you know that your worth comes from God. This frees you to love others without fear of rejection and to extend grace and forgiveness, even when it's difficult. Trusting God also gives you the strength to set healthy boundaries, knowing that your identity is not defined by how others treat you. As a result, your relationships become healthier, more authentic, and more fulfilling. Ultimately, trust transforms your entire outlook on life. Instead of living with fear, worry, and uncertainty, you live with peace, confidence, and hope. You begin to see God's hand in every situation, guiding you, providing for you, and working all things together for your good. Even when life is challenging, you can face each day with the assurance that God is in control and that his plans for you are good. This confidence allows you to live with joy, knowing that your future is secure in his hands. Trust is not a one-time decision, it is a daily choice. Each day, you have the opportunity to choose faith over fear, surrender over control, and hope over doubt. And each time you choose to trust, your relationship with God grows stronger. Over time, trust becomes the foundation of your life, a foundation that cannot be shaken by circumstances or trials. This foundation allows you to live with freedom, peace, and purpose, knowing that no matter what happens, you are never alone. God is with you, guiding you, loving you, and leading you into the life he created you to live. Trusting Jesus in times of uncertainty Uncertainty is a part of life. No matter how carefully you plan or how much you prepare, there will always be moments when the future is unclear and the path ahead seems hidden. In these moments, fear and doubt can quickly take root, making you question whether God is truly in control. But it is in these very moments that trusting Jesus becomes more essential than ever. Trust is not tested when life is easy. It is proven when you stand at the edge of the unknown and choose to believe that God is still guiding your steps. Imagine standing in the middle of a dense fog, unable to see more than a few steps ahead. Every direction looks the same, and each step feels uncertain. Fear whispers that you might make the wrong choice, that you might stumble or fall. But then you hear a voice, the voice of Jesus, calling your name. He doesn't show you the entire path, but he promises to guide you one step at a time. Trust means taking that first step even when you cannot see the whole journey, because you know the one who is leading you will never let you fall. Times of uncertainty reveal what you truly believe about God. It's easy to trust him when life is going according to plan, but when the future is unclear, fear can make you question whether God is still with you. Doubt begins to creep in, whispering that maybe God has forgotten you or that he is not as faithful as you once believed. These thoughts can quickly create distance between you and God, leaving you feeling isolated and afraid. But the truth is, God's presence does not depend on your circumstances. He is just as present in the unknown as he is in the familiar. His love and faithfulness are not determined by how much you can see. They are constant, unchanging, and always available to you. Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10 offers a powerful reminder of God's presence in uncertain times. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. These words are not just meant to comfort you, they are a call to trust. God does not promise that you will always understand his plan, but he does promise that you will never face the unknown alone. His presence is your anchor, holding you steady when everything else feels uncertain. Trusting Jesus in times of uncertainty begins with a choice. The choice to believe that God is in control, even when life feels out of control. This choice is not always easy. Fear is a powerful force, and the unknown can feel overwhelming. But faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to believe that God is greater than your fear. When fear says, "What if everything goes wrong?" Trust responds, "Even if it does, God will be with me." When doubt says, "What if God doesn't come through?" Faith declares, "God is always faithful, even when I cannot see it." One of the greatest challenges of trusting God in uncertain times is the temptation to rely on your own understanding. When the future is unclear, it's natural to want to take control, to try to figure things out on your own. But Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 to 6 reminds us of a better way. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Trust means letting go of the need to have all the answers and allowing God to lead you, even when you cannot see the full picture. It means surrendering your desire for control and believing that God's plan is greater than your own. But trusting Jesus in uncertain times is not just about waiting, it's about actively seeking his presence and guidance. Prayer becomes your lifeline, allowing you to bring your fears, doubts, and questions directly to God. When you pray, you invite his peace into your heart, replacing anxiety with confidence. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 to 7 reminds us of the power of prayer. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Indeed, this peace is not dependent on your circumstances. It is the result of knowing that God is with you, no matter what the future holds. Reading the Bible is another essential way to build trust during uncertain times. God's Word is a source of wisdom, encouragement, and hope, reminding you of His faithfulness throughout history. When you read about how God provided for the Israelites in the wilderness, how He protected Daniel in the lion's den, and how He guided Joseph through years of uncertainty, you are reminded that the same God who was faithful then is faithful now. Each story becomes a testimony of God's power and love, strengthening your faith and giving you the confidence to trust Him with your own unknowns. Community is also vital during times of uncertainty. Surrounding yourself with other believers provides support, encouragement, and accountability. When fear and doubt begin to creep in, your community can remind you of God's promises and help you stay focused on His faithfulness. Sharing your struggles with others allows you to experience God's love through their words and actions, reminding you that you are never alone. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 to 10 says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up." During uncertain times, having people who will walk beside you, pray for you, and encourage you can make all the difference. Trusting Jesus in uncertain times also means embracing the unknown as an opportunity for growth. Uncertainty forces you to rely on God in ways that you might not otherwise. It stretches your faith, teaching you to depend on His strength rather than your own. James chapter 1 verse 2 to 4 encourages us to see trials as a path to spiritual maturity. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity to grow closer to God, allowing Him to shape your character and deepen your trust in His goodness. Finally, trusting Jesus in uncertain times requires patience. God's timing is often different from your own, and waiting can be difficult. But waiting is not wasted time. It is a season of preparation. God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events in ways that you cannot see. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 offers a promise for those who wait on God. "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Trust means believing that God's timing is perfect, even when it feels slow. It means resting in the assurance that He is working all things together for your good, even when the outcome is still unknown. In the end, trusting Jesus in times of uncertainty is about choosing faith over fear, hope over doubt, and surrender over control. It is about believing that no matter what happens, God is with you, guiding you, strengthening you, and leading you into His perfect plan. The unknown may feel frightening, but when you place your trust in the one who holds the future, you can face each day with confidence, knowing that you are never alone. How to build unshakable trust in Jesus. Building unshakable trust in Jesus is not something that happens overnight. It is a process that develops through intentional choices, daily habits, and personal experiences with God's faithfulness. Trust is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And just like building physical strength requires discipline and consistency, building spiritual trust requires a commitment to seeking God and relying on Him in every area of your life. When you make trust a priority, it transforms the way you think, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you experience God's presence. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain, looking up at the summit. The path to the top is steep and challenging, filled with obstacles and uncertainties. At first, the climb seems impossible, but with each step you take, your confidence grows. The more you climb, the stronger you become, and the closer you get to the summit. Trusting Jesus is like climbing that mountain. It begins with small steps of faith that build your confidence in God's goodness and faithfulness. Each step of trust takes you higher until you reach a place where fear no longer holds you back and faith becomes your natural response to life's challenges. The foundation of unshakable trust is built on knowing who God is. You cannot fully trust someone you do not know, and the same is true in your relationship with Jesus. The more you understand his character, his love, faithfulness, wisdom, and power, the easier it becomes to trust him, even when life is uncertain. The Bible is the primary way to know God, revealing his heart, his promises, and his unchanging nature. Psalm chapter 9 verse 10 declares, "Those who know your name trust in you, for you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you." Each time you read God's word, you are reminded of his faithfulness throughout history, giving you confidence that he will be faithful in your life as well. Consistency in reading the Bible is essential for building unshakable trust. Make it a daily habit to spend time in God's Word, not just as a religious duty, but as a way to hear his voice and understand his heart. Focus on passages that highlight God's faithfulness, such as Psalm chapter 23, Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, and Romans chapter 8 verse 28. Reflect on the stories of people who trusted God in difficult circumstances, like Abraham, Joseph, David, and Paul. Their journeys of faith demonstrate that God is always working behind the scenes, even when the outcome is unclear. As you immerse yourself in Scripture, your mind is renewed, and your perspective shifts from fear and doubt to faith and confidence. Prayer is another essential key to building trust in Jesus. Prayer is not just about asking God for what you need, it is about developing a relationship with him. When you bring your fears, doubts, and questions to God, you invite his presence into your life and create space for him to speak to your heart. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 to 7 encourages us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." As you pray and experience God's peace, your trust grows stronger because you see firsthand that he is listening, caring, and responding to your needs. Building unshakable trust also requires stepping out in faith. Trust is not built by staying in your comfort zone. It grows when you take risks and rely on God to guide you. Each time you obey God's leading, even when it doesn't make sense, your trust deepens. It might be as simple as forgiving someone who hurt you, giving generously when finances are tight, or sharing your faith with a friend. Every step of obedience is a step of trust, and with each step, your confidence in God's faithfulness grows. Over time, these small acts of trust add up, creating a foundation of faith that cannot be shaken no matter what life throws your way. Remembering God's faithfulness in the past is another powerful way to build trust. Take time to reflect on the ways God has provided, protected, and guided you throughout your life. Think about the prayers he has answered, the doors he has opened, and the moments when his presence brought you peace. When you remember how God has been faithful before, it becomes easier to trust that he will be faithful again. Psalm chapter 77 verse 11 says, "I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago." Keeping a journal of answered prayers and moments of God's faithfulness can be a powerful reminder of his love and provision, especially when you face new challenges. Surrounding yourself with other believers is also essential for building unshakable trust. Community provides encouragement, accountability, and support, helping you stay focused on God's promises when doubt and fear try to creep in. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 24 to 25 reminds us, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." Being part of a church or small group allows you to hear testimonies of God's faithfulness in the lives of others, strengthening your own faith and reminding you that you are not alone. Building unshakable trust also requires surrender, letting go of the need to control every aspect of your life and trusting that God's plan is greater than your own. This is often the hardest part of trust because it requires releasing your grip on what feels safe and predictable. But true freedom comes when you surrender your plans, desires, and fears to God, believing that He knows what is best for you. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9 says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." When you choose to trust God's timing and direction, you experience a peace that goes beyond understanding, even when the future is uncertain. Building unshakable trust also means choosing to believe God's promises, even when your circumstances seem to contradict them. Faith is not about denying the reality of your situation. It is about believing that God is greater than your circumstances. When fear says, "This situation is hopeless," faith declares, "With God, all things are possible." When doubt says, "I don't see how this will work out," trust responds, "God is working all things together for my good." Holding on to God's promises, even when you cannot see the outcome, strengthens your trust and deepens your relationship with Him. Patience is essential when building unshakable trust. God's timing is often different from your own, and waiting can be one of the greatest tests of faith. But waiting is not wasted time. It is a season of preparation and growth. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 reminds us, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Trusting God's timing requires surrendering your desire for immediate answers and believing that His plan is unfolding exactly as it should. As you wait with patience and faith, your trust in God's goodness and sovereignty grows stronger. Ultimately, building unshakable trust in Jesus is about developing a relationship with Him that is rooted in love, faith, and surrender. It is about choosing to believe that no matter what happens, God is with you, guiding you, and working all things together for your good. It is about walking by faith, not by sight, knowing that even when the path is unclear, God's hand is holding you steady. And it is about living each day with confidence, peace, and joy, knowing that your trust is not in your own strength or abilities, but in the unchanging love and power of Jesus Christ. How trust impacts those around you. Trusting Jesus is not just about your personal relationship with God. It has a profound impact on the people around you. Your faith, your choices, and the way you live your life create a ripple effect that influences your family, friends, co-workers, and even strangers. When you trust Jesus, your life becomes a testimony of His love, power, and faithfulness. People see the peace you have in difficult situations, the joy you carry, even when circumstances are uncertain, and the strength that comes from knowing you are never alone. This visible demonstration of trust has the power to inspire, encourage, and lead others to discover the same relationship with God that has transformed your life. Imagine dropping a stone into a still pond. The moment the stone touches the water, ripples begin to spread outward in every direction, touching everything they encounter. Your trust in Jesus works the same way. Every decision you make, every word you speak, and every action you take creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. The way you respond to challenges, the way you treat others, and the way you live your faith all send a message to the people around you. And when that message is one of trust, faith, and confidence in God, it has the power to change lives. The first and most immediate ripple of your trust in Jesus is seen within your family. Whether you realize it or not, your faith influences the atmosphere of your home, When you trust Jesus, you bring peace into your household, peace that is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in the assurance that God is in control. Your children learn what it means to rely on God by watching you navigate life's challenges with faith instead of fear. Your spouse is encouraged and strengthened by your confidence in God's provision and guidance. Even extended family members are impacted as they witness the consistency of your faith, whether through the way you handle financial pressures, health concerns, or relationship struggles. But the ripple effect of your trust goes beyond your immediate family. Your friends and co-workers also take notice when you choose to trust God in situations where others might panic or give up. When you respond to stress with peace, when you approach challenges with faith, and when you treat others with kindness and compassion, people begin to wonder what makes you different. Your life becomes a silent testimony, showing that there is a source of strength and hope that goes beyond human understanding. And when they face their own struggles, they may turn to you for advice, encouragement, or simply to ask how you maintain your peace. These moments provide opportunities to share your faith and point others to Jesus, showing them that the trust you have is not based on your own strength, but on the faithfulness of God. Trust also impacts the way you interact with strangers. The world is filled with people who are searching for hope, purpose, and meaning. Many are weighed down by fear, anxiety, and uncertainty, unsure of where to turn. When they encounter someone who lives with genuine trust in God, it stands out. A kind word, a compassionate act, or even a simple smile can be a reflection of God's love, opening the door for deeper conversations and opportunities to share the hope you have in Jesus. You may never know the full impact of these moments, but each interaction is like a ripple, spreading God's love in ways you cannot see. One of the most powerful ways your trust impacts others is through the example you set during difficult times. It's easy to have faith when life is going well, but it is your response to trials and challenges that speaks the loudest. When people see you facing adversity with courage and confidence, they take notice. They see that your trust is not just words. It is a deeply rooted belief that sustains you even when circumstances are uncertain. This kind of faith is contagious. It inspires others to seek the same peace and strength that you have found in Jesus. Your story becomes a testimony of God's faithfulness, showing others that if He can sustain you, He can sustain them as well. Your trust also has the power to break down barriers and change the way people see God. Many people have misconceptions about God, seeing Him as distant, judgmental, or uninterested in their lives. But when they see the peace, joy, and freedom that come from trusting Jesus, those misconceptions begin to fade. Your life becomes evidence that God is not only real, but deeply involved in the lives of those who trust Him. This realization can open hearts that were once closed, leading people to explore their own relationship with God and discover the love and grace that He offers. Trust also impacts the way you lead and influence others. Whether you are a parent, a teacher, a mentor, or a leader in your community, your faith sets an example for those who look up to you. When you lead with integrity, compassion, and faith, you inspire others to do the same. Your trust in God gives you the courage to make decisions based on what is right, not what is easy, and to pursue goals that align with God's purpose for your life. This kind of leadership creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond your immediate circle of influence, shaping the lives of future generations. But perhaps the most profound ripple effect of your trust is the eternal impact it can have on the lives of others. When you trust Jesus, you become a living example of His transforming power. Your life becomes a beacon of hope, pointing others to the only source of true peace and purpose. Each conversation, each act of kindness, and each moment of faith is an opportunity to plant seeds of hope in the hearts of those around you. And while you may not always see the results, Every seed planted has the potential to grow into a life-changing encounter with God. Building this kind of trust requires consistency. People are watching not just how you respond in moments of crisis, but how you live your faith day after day. It's the small, everyday choices that create the most lasting impact. The way you speak to your family, the way you treat your co-workers, and the way you handle setbacks and disappointments. When you consistently choose faith over fear, kindness over anger, and hope over despair, you create a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. But this ripple effect is not limited to those you know personally. In today's interconnected world, your faith has the potential to reach people you may never meet. Whether through social media, acts of service, or simply living your faith in a way that others can see, your trust in Jesus can inspire and encourage people across the globe. A single post, a shared story, or a moment of vulnerability can plant seeds of hope in the hearts of people who are searching for something more. And as those seeds grow, they create their own ripple effect, spreading God's love and transforming lives in ways you may never fully understand. In the end, the ripple effect of your trust in Jesus is about more than just influencing others. It is about partnering with God to bring His kingdom to earth. Every act of faith, every word of encouragement, and every moment of trust is part of a greater story that God is writing. A story of redemption, transformation, and eternal hope. And as you continue to trust Jesus, your life becomes a living testimony of His love, spreading ripples of faith that will impact generations to come. Take the first step toward trusting Jesus today. There comes a moment when knowing about trust is no longer enough. Understanding God's promises, hearing stories of His faithfulness, and seeing His hand at work in the lives of others can inspire you. But trust requires action. It is a decision that must be made, a step that must be taken. Right now, in this very moment, you have the opportunity to take that step, to choose to trust Jesus and allow Him to transform your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. Imagine standing at the edge of a river, with the other side representing the life God has prepared for you, a life filled with peace, purpose, and the assurance of His presence. The water may look deep, the current strong, and the distance too far to cross. Fear whispers that you might fail, that the water will sweep you away. But then you hear His voice, calm, steady, and full of love, saying, "Trust me, take the first step and I will carry you the rest of the way." At that moment, the only thing standing between you and the life God has for you is the decision to trust Him. Taking the first step toward trusting Jesus is not about having all the answers or understanding every detail of God's plan. It is about believing that He is who He says He is and that His love for you is unshakable. It means choosing to believe that His grace is greater than your past, His strength is greater than your weakness, and His wisdom is greater than your doubts. Trusting Jesus does not mean that life will be free from challenges, but it does mean that you will never face those challenges alone. He will walk beside you, guide you through the storms, and lead you to the other side. For many, the greatest obstacle to trusting Jesus is the fear of surrender. Letting go of control feels risky, especially when the future is uncertain. But the truth is, trying to control every aspect of your life only leads to stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. Trusting Jesus is not about losing control. It is about placing your life in the hands of the one who created you, loves you, and knows what is best for you. It is about exchanging the weight of fear and worry for the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. And the first step toward experiencing that peace is simply saying, "God, I trust you." Maybe you've tried to trust God before, but disappointment and unanswered prayers have made it difficult to believe that He is truly for you. or perhaps fear of the unknown has kept you from fully surrendering your life to Him. Whatever has held you back, know this: God's love for you has never wavered. He has been patiently waiting, ready to meet you right where you are. His arms are open, and His invitation is clear. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. This invitation is not reserved for those who have it all together. It is for anyone who is tired of carrying the weight of life alone. It is for you. Taking the first step toward trusting Jesus begins with a simple yet powerful choice: to open your heart to Him. It is as simple as speaking honestly and sincerely, telling God that you are ready to trust Him. You do not need perfect words. God sees your heart. But if you're not sure what to say, consider this prayer. Jesus, I know that I cannot do life on my own. I have tried to control everything, but it has only left me feeling tired, anxious, and afraid. Today, I choose to trust you. I believe that you are who you say you are, that you love me, that you died for my sins, and that you have a purpose for my life. I surrender my fears, my doubts, and my need for control. I ask you to take the lead and guide me step by step. Help me to trust you more each day and to experience the peace that comes from knowing that I am never alone. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, know that something powerful has begun. Trust is not built in a single moment. It grows stronger with each step of faith you take. As you continue to trust Jesus, you will begin to see His hand at work in your life in ways you never expected. You will experience His peace in the middle of chaos, His strength when you feel weak, and His guidance when the path ahead is unclear. Each day, your relationship with God will grow deeper, and the walls of fear and doubt that once held you back will begin to crumble. But taking the first step is only the beginning. Trust is built through daily choices, choosing to seek God in prayer, to read His Word, and to follow His leading even when it feels uncertain. Each time you choose faith over fear, your trust grows stronger. Each time you see God's faithfulness, your confidence in His goodness is reinforced. Over time, trusting Jesus becomes not just something you do, it becomes a way of life. Trusting Jesus also means surrounding yourself with others who can encourage and support you on your journey. Find a community of believers who can walk alongside you, share their own stories of God's faithfulness, and remind you of His promises when doubt tries to creep in. The journey of trust is not meant to be walked alone, and having others to encourage you makes the path easier and the victories sweeter. As you take this first step, know that God is already at work. The same God who spoke the universe into existence, who parted the Red Sea, and who raised Jesus from the dead, is the same God who is holding your life in His hands. No situation is too big for Him, no fear is too great, and no mistake is beyond His grace. He is the God who makes a way where there seems to be no way, who brings hope out of despair, and who turns even the darkest moments into something beautiful. Right now, in this moment, the invitation stands before you. Take the first step. Trust Jesus with your life, your future, and your heart. You may not see the whole path, but you can be confident that the one leading you knows every step. And as you take that first step of trust, you will begin to experience the peace, freedom, and purpose that only God can provide. Trust is the bridge that connects your heart to God's presence, but it is a bridge that only you can choose to cross. Throughout this journey, you have seen that trusting Jesus is not about having all the answers. It is about believing that He is with you, guiding you, and working all things together for your good. You have discovered that trust is built one step at a time, through daily choices to rely on God's strength instead of your own. And you have seen how this trust transforms your relationship with God, bringing peace, freedom, and a sense of purpose that nothing in this world can offer. Now the choice is yours. Will you continue to carry the weight of life on your own, or will you take that step of faith and place your trust in Jesus? The invitation is open, and God is waiting with open arms. You do not have to have everything figured out. God is not asking for perfection. He is simply asking you to trust Him, one step at a time. No matter where you have been or what you have done, His love for you has never changed. His grace is still available, and His promises are still true. Think about the moments in your life when fear and doubt have held you back. Think about the times when you felt alone, overwhelmed, and unsure of what to do next. Now imagine what it would be like to face those same challenges with the confidence that God is with you. Imagine waking up each day with a sense of peace that no circumstance can shake, knowing that the Creator of the universe is guiding your steps. Imagine living with the freedom that comes from knowing that you are fully known, fully loved, and fully accepted, just as you are. This is the life that trust in Jesus makes possible. But trust is not just about what God can do for you. It is about experiencing a relationship with the one who created you and loves you more than you can imagine. It is about walking through life with the assurance that you are never alone, no matter what challenges you face. It is about knowing that even when life is uncertain, God is still in control. And it is about discovering the joy that comes from living with purpose, knowing that your life has meaning and significance because you are a child of God. If this message has touched your heart, do not wait any longer. Take the step of faith and trust Jesus with your life. You do not need to have all the answers. You simply need to say yes to His invitation. If you have never trusted Jesus before, or if you have wandered away and are ready to come back, now is the time. Open your heart to Him and invite Him to be the Lord of your life. And if you have already placed your trust in Jesus, take this moment to renew your commitment, surrendering every fear, doubt, and worry into His hands. If you are ready to take that step, pray this simple prayer. Jesus, I choose to trust you. I believe that you are who you say you are, that you love me, that you died for my sins, and that you have a plan and purpose for my life. I surrender my fears, my doubts, and my need for control. I invite you to take the lead, to guide my steps, and to help me trust you more each day. Fill my heart with your peace and show me the life you have prepared for me. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, know that this is just the beginning of an incredible journey. Trust is something that grows stronger with each step of faith, and as you continue to walk with Jesus, you will begin to see His hand at work in your life in ways you never expected. You will experience His presence in the middle of your challenges, His peace in the middle of your storms, and His joy in the middle of your everyday moments. Each step of trust will bring you closer to God. And as your relationship with Him deepens, you will discover that He is more faithful, more loving, and more powerful than you could have ever imagined. But this journey is not meant to be walked alone. Surround yourself with other believers who can encourage and support you as you grow in your faith. Find a church where you can connect with others, learn more about God's Word, and experience the power of worship and community. And continue to seek God daily through prayer and reading the Bible, allowing His truth to shape your thoughts, guide your decisions, and strengthen your trust. And now, as you step into this new chapter of your life, remember that your trust in Jesus is not just for your benefit. It is a light that can impact everyone around you. Your faith will inspire others to seek God. Your peace will bring hope to those who are struggling, and your story will be a testimony of God's love and faithfulness. Each step you take creates a ripple effect that can change lives. And as you continue to trust Jesus, your life will become a reflection of His grace, shining brightly in a world that desperately needs hope. So take the first step. Trust Jesus with your life and watch as He leads you into a future filled with peace, purpose, and the assurance of His presence. You may not see the whole path, but you can be confident that the one leading you knows every step. And as you continue to trust Him, you will discover that the life He has for you is greater, more beautiful, and more fulfilling than anything you could have imagined. If this message has encouraged you, share it with someone who needs to hear that trusting in Jesus can bring them closer to God. And if you would like to hear more messages that will inspire and strengthen your faith, be sure to subscribe to this channel and stay connected. Your journey of trust is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.